good evening to you both. And let's begin with the first of the party leaders to campaign in Calgary.
We need to fight. We need to fight. So I have a question. Who's ready?
Mark Carney spoke to a Calgary crowd of 1,000, though organizers say the venue's capacity couldn't accommodate the roughly 3,000 who RSVP'd. The Liberal leader told the room Tuesday evening he believes Canada can be an energy superpower in clean and conventional energy. Don, what's your read on Liberals making inroads in cities like Calgary and Edmonton? What message does Mark Carney need to convey to have an impact?
Well, I'm going to be one of those dystopians and say I'm not sure what he's saying. 1 week, not that long ago, it's this, and now it's that. And in Calgary, we're talking, what are we talking about in Calgary? Pipelines are a go. Mr. Legault seems to think otherwise. A whole bunch of other things. I'm confused, and I'm looking forward to what John Brennan has to say, because he knows the Liberal strategy a bit better than I do. But I am totally confused by this. And I'm also confused by the media coverage that somehow Mr. Poilievre shows up in Nisku outside of Edmonton, and he's got tens plus 3,000 and it barely makes a mention. And maybe we got 900 people or 1,000 in Calgary, and it's woohoo, let's go. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. John, I'm very interested to see what you have to say.
Well, John, I have to think that Don maybe didn't watch Alberta Primetime last night. That's what we led the politics panel with, was Mr. Poilievre. So, all right. Well, let me put the question to you then, Mr. Brennan. What do you make of the Calgary event coming on the heels of that massive Pierre Poilievre rally in Nisku Monday evening? And to Don's point, it drew a crowd somewhere north of 10,000.
Well, it goes to show you, Michael, that the Liberal Party has been revived in Alberta. Now, it's still not at a level where it's competing with the Conservatives, but it's doing much better than it did the last couple of elections. You know, all the polling shows us right now, in the regional polling in Alberta, that the Conservatives are holding their vote at about 55% of the vote. But right now, the Liberal Party of Canada is polling about 30% in Alberta. And in the 2021 election, Michael, they got 15% of the vote. And with that 15% of the vote, they were able to elect 2 MPs, one in Edmonton Centre and one in Calgary Skyview. At 30% in the polls in Alberta, and my guess, Michael, is most of that support is concentrated in Edmonton, Calgary, and further concentrated in parts of Edmonton and Calgary. I think the Liberals have a very good shot of winning 2, 3, perhaps even as many as 4 seats in Calgary.
Don, this is day 18, the midpoint of the federal election campaign. The Liberal lead over the Conservatives continues to narrow, now down to 4 points. What do you feel might be driving momentum back toward Team Poilievre?
Well, 2 things. And again, my apologies, Michael. I'm sorry I didn't see your show yesterday, and I should have. My bad. But I was generally speaking across the country. There hasn't been a lot of coverage positive on Mr. Poilievre for reasons I don't fully understand, notably at the CBC. Anyway, enough of me talking about that. I think what we're looking at is confusion again. We're going to have to make some choices. I agree with Mr. Singh when he's saying this is a very important election in the sense of how do we deal with the guerrillas to the south of us, who's angry about something, we're not quite sure. And today we just learned that we've got a 90-day reprieve, maybe, we don't know. But what it gets down to is this. The choice will be, do we deal with somebody who's been a banker, who's used to being in the halls of power and the status quo, or do we need a thug? That's what it's going to get down to. Now, if you look to what's happening in the South right now, I don't know. Do we need status quo people or do we need thugs? Well, I guess we'll find out at the end of the month.
All right. Well, we heard NDP candidate Tricia Estabrooks off the top, part of our campaign trail check-in, focusing on the competitive Edmonton Centre riding. John, at a time when the polls put the New Democrats at a 25-year low, how important is Edmonton and maybe this riding in particular?
Edmonton's incredibly important to the NDP, Michael, because, of course, they hold 2 seats now. Edmonton Strathcona and Edmonton Griesbach, and they would really like to win Edmonton Centre. You know, we've seen in recent years, Michael, the support for the NDP in Edmonton Centre has gradually risen. The 2015, 2019, 2021 elections, the NDP vote steadily increased. And that coincided also with the steady increase of NDP support provincially. So there are a lot of NDP supporters in Edmonton Centre, and they have an exceptional candidate. Like Trish Esbrooks is a very strong candidate, and there's no doubt the NDP are putting support and resources into Edmonton Centre. The problem is, of course, is federally, the NDP has never won Edmonton Centre. Only the Conservatives and Liberals have. And in this election campaign, Michael, is very much shaping up to be a binary choice. Do you want to go with Mark Carney and the Liberals, or do you want change? Do you want to go with Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives? And that's what's hurting the NDP right now. You know, you referenced their national polls down to 8%. The same phenomenon is happening in Alberta, where they're also down 8-9%. Which is 10% below where they were in the 2021 election. And so a lot of that support from the NDP, both nationally and here provincially, has gone over to the Liberal Party and is going to help Liberal candidates both in Edmonton and in Calgary.
Don, how challenged do you feel the NDP will be to make a breakthrough in Edmonton Centre, riding, long flip-flopping back and forth between the Liberals and the Conservatives?
Well, as we were discussing just before we got on the air here, you can thank I'm Not Randy for helping the NDP campaign along. And I'm not being facetious about that. I'm being very serious about this. The second thing is because of that situation, a lot of people are moving in the direction toward Ms. Easterbrook because, first off, she's a good candidate. There's no question. She was a very good host when she was on CBC radio in this city, or, I mean, part of the morning team, as I recall. It's quite a while back. And she's well-loved in the sense that she has knocked on the doors. How do I know this? Because I used to live in the neighborhood that she knocked a door on. So I think that's a real plus for her. Now, the thing for me, though, is that are they really NDP? We talked about this before. I think they're more liberal than the Liberals, at least for this city of Edmonton, which tends to lean a little bit left of center. So she might be an NDP candidate, but she represents the best Liberal choice, I would argue, in Edmonton Centre.
The Smith government is moving to axe codes of conduct for municipal councils. Bylaws, the minister says, result in dysfunction.
In some cases, we've seen these codes become weaponized amongst council members. Instead of promoting harmony, codes of conduct have sometimes been used by council members to harass or sideline their colleagues over political disagreements.
To this point, all 334 municipalities have been required to each have a code of conduct, and by eliminating them, the minister says councillors will now be able to focus on their jobs, not interpersonal drama. McIver says standard meeting procedures will be adopted instead, and the government will explore the creation of an independent ethics commissioner position. Don, what do you make of the government's motivation for ditching municipal codes of conduct? What do you see this stemming from?
Well, I would point to Medicine Hat as being a really good example of why this is long overdue. Again, the background on this is there's a lot of detail, but it basically gets down to this, is that the bureaucracy was treating the elected politicians like an inconvenient truth. You know, bureaucracies stay, governments come and go. And the mayor was getting rather a little upset with the person who was running the city at the time. And let's just say that decorum went down into a direction that is south of the, well, it was pretty bad. But anyway, at the end of the day, it was weaponized. There's no question about that. And all of a sudden, the mayor is docked pay and can't talk to the bureaucracy. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So this is a ruling that is long overdue because it has happened in the past and will likely happen again. Like I said before, bureaucracies tend to stay and politicians come and go. And the bureaucracy sometimes doesn't like it when they have a politician that they don't like. So hopefully this will remove that problem.
Well, and now, John, how does this play when, in less than a week's time, discussions are to be had on a code of conduct for MLAs? The Alberta Legislative Assembly, apparently one of only a few to not have one.
Well, it's bizarre, Michael, and it's bizarre that they're going to get rid of the existing code of conduct and code of ethics before the new one is in place. You know, this is more the same from the UCP of being dictatorial towards the municipalities in this province. Once again, there was no consultation with Alberta municipalities. There was no consultation with Alberta rural municipalities. It's just Rick McIver standing up in the press room with the legislature and saying this is the way it's going to be. Now, at the end of the day, the whole issue of code of conduct, code of ethics is something that we all want, both at the federal, provincial, municipal level. And I think if you ask the average voter, do you care if it's a municipal bylaw or a provincial statute, most people won't care. But I think they should have thought this through a little bit better and had the new province-wide code of conduct and code of ethics ready to go before they got rid of all the local municipal ones.
All right. We have time for one more topic. That is a 3-day trip east for the Premier. Danielle Smith is in Montreal today and tomorrow before heading to Ottawa Friday with a goal of boosting interprovincial trade. The Premier says Alberta and Quebec have natural synergies, which will help set the stage for more trade partner collaboration in areas like energy, manufacturing, and transportation. John, what do you see riding on this sojourn, especially where Quebec is concerned?
I welcome the fact that Premier Smith is going to Central Canada to meet with business leaders in Ontario and Quebec. I hope that she's meeting with Premier Ford and Premier Legault while she's down there, because, you know, we've had a lot of Danielle Smith going down to the United States, speaking to various media outlets, including various alt-right media outlets. I'm glad to see that she's doing some outreach to Central Canada, the two biggest provinces in this country, and trying to build relationships with the business community and other people in those places. So I think it's welcome, and I think it's a good thing that she's doing it.
Don, to what degree do you see this playing into the Premier writing recently to the Legault government, pitching the creation of an autonomy alliance with Quebec, teaming up to assist provincial autonomy?
Well, this harkens back, Michael, to a long, long time ago, several political generations ago, to the Lougheed era, when Alberta opened up an office in Quebec to do precisely this, to have this kind of liaise. Now, that was then, this is now. Interprovincial trade, as everybody knows, has been a real barrier in our country for too long. I don't even want to get into it. But at this point in time, I think we're looking at, because of this crisis, which is happening with the Trump 2.0 administration, we're looking at these synergies, if that's the word to use, that were impossible politically not even 6 months ago. So this is, I echo what John is saying, this is a welcome development. Let's hope she succeeds and we have a better situation in our country for interprovincial trade.
John, Premier Smith also listed as a keynote speaker at the Canada Strong and Free conference in Ottawa this week, part of a political advocacy group established by Preston Manning 20 years ago to promote conservative principles. How much weight do you see that carrying on this trip?
Well, it's certainly going to be well covered, Michael, because that conference always gets a lot of immediate attention. And of course, it's happening in the midst of a federal election campaign. So it's going to be very interesting what she's going to say there. My guess, it's going to be very similar to what she's been saying in recent weeks, and that is Alberta wants to work with the next federal government to be able to develop our natural resources, to be able to build pipelines either to the West Coast, to the East Coast, and want to have a good, friendly, good working relationship with the next federal government. There's no doubt, given her public comments, Michael, that she would rather that next federal government be led by Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. But here we are halfway through the election, and it's looking like we're heading to another Liberal government, perhaps another Liberal majority government. So it's going to be very interesting what she has to say at that conference, Michael. And if she strikes a more diplomatic note towards Mark Carney and the Liberals than what she's been saying in recent weeks.
All right, gentlemen, we will have to leave it there. We're out of time. Good to see you both. Thank you kindly.
You're welcome,
Thanks,
Michael. Good to see you, John. Bye-bye.
Good to see you, Don.